Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Kyle, aka Blackbeard, yes, a new bi-weekly host, has found his way through the werewolf and dogman infested forest and into the darkness of the fox den to awaken me from my slumber, as it is time for Midnight Lycanthropy on LordeStarfox Radio. Absolutely delicious. Thank you for allowing me to replenish lost nutrients. I have been sleeping for so long and was wondering when I would get a chance to feast again. Now, without further ado, it is time to take a walk into the madness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. We have a new host and guest that has snuck past the dogman and werewolf guards I have out front and into the darkness of the fox den. He is a friend of Drewski. Yes, which means, of course, you know Jessica Jones and the whole good old crew that come and hang out with us all the time. Blackbeard now is sitting by the fire, and he's already got the late night timber flared up for us, as again, this is the official stomping ground of what? Yes, the Midnight Society. Blackbeard, how you doing tonight, my guy?
Pretty good. How are you doing, man?
You know, not too bad. Really, in a perfect world, wishing my Boston Bruins were still in the playoffs. I'm a big hockey guy, so I've been having to watch teams that I could care less about, yet it is what it is. And then just editing, linking up with a guest such as yourself and trying to get the good old boulder pushed up the hill for YouTube here. What have you been up to?
Not much. Just working and just getting podcasts out of the way, trying to just tell my story.
This is great stuff. Yes, I do appreciate you sitting down and hanging out with us tonight. Do me a favor, make sure you send me a mini bio of yourself. Also, a couple of images you like, so when I get a chance and my good old art tablet, I'm going to make a little cool cartoon of you with a bio. Also, if you do have any links that you would like up in the good old description, meaning if you got a YouTube page, if you got any sort of links to books you've worked on, make sure you toss those over as well, and we'll make sure to promote that for you, man.
Right on. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. A friend of Drewski and Jessica's is, well, yes, a part of my squad for sure. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, you know, what you do, what got you interested potentially into cryptids? Are you a researcher yourself, or do you just find it interesting because of encounters you might have had? How are we here right now, my guy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not a researcher myself by any means. I mean, I like to think of myself as a researcher, but I mean, that goes as far as just throwing around the occasional theories and thoughts and thinking of just different trips I'd love to plan for, I guess you call research missions and whatever. But I'm a believer from just past experiences, and the world's too big for us not to know. The world's too big. Just put it like that. We don't know everything, and there's something out there.
Agreed. Well stated, my friend. Yeah, there's a lot of mysteries here. Personally, on Midnight Lycanthropy, I dive into, like I had mentioned to you, missing people in the national forest, near cave systems, modern day and prehistoric predator behaviors, strange canine sightings. Yeah, I do have a little sister podcast called Camp Nightmare Fuel I work on with one of my great friends and hosts, Barb Hartman. We have put out 3 official episodes. Yeah, over there, we dive into anything outside of the realm of what I just mentioned here. Also, outside of what Barb covers, she is really big into Sasquatch. Our first episode was about trying to find a legendary Bigfoot researcher that got hosed named Autumn Williams. We made a huge video about her, what happened to her, people stalking her, creepy stuff for sure. Then the next episode, we got to talk about, well, don't want to spoil it for people, but somebody we work with all the time over here, a personal, really scary, paranormal, supernatural occurrence that happened to their family. And the last one we just dropped was about the big old Jabba Fofi, which is the Congolese giant spider. So yes, I try to, as much as I can, focus on the topics I first mentioned here, because Midnight Lycanthropy is pretty much my main focus. Yet at the same time, Camp Nightmare Fuel is awesome, and things that I do have in my head that I don't need to go out of the way to research because I've already had it sitting in the good old file cabinet for so long. It's cool to dive into that stuff over there. Yet we don't churn out as much as I do over here, even though Barb is bi-weekly on Midnight Lycanthropy. So her and I churn out a ton of stuff, just not as much Camp Nightmare Fuel, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it takes, like you said, time, but hey, I'm all about it, my friend, because being an artist, it's, well, a great way to show off creativity while sitting there and making something that is educational yet has entertainment value, meaning I'm a former actor and model. I always love to learn, yet I feel like back in the day, a lot of the super educational things were just so wry and boring, like a PBS after school special, right? So when I started making my content, I wanted it to be more along the lines of something like Monster Quest. Actually, Doug Hychek is a buddy of mine, but meaning you're getting some entertainment with the images, my intro, my outro, yet you're getting experiences, you're getting scientific information, and I treat it like basically an episode you would get on TV.
No, that's totally understandable. I mean, Monster Quest was actually really influential as a kid. As much as I wish they would have covered a lot, I wish they would have covered more, if that makes sense. Um, there was some things I probably would have done different, but it was really influential as a child.
Agreed, my guy. Yes, so awesome for sure. And I do hope someday, Doug said he wants to reboot it now that he can do his own thing without having to deal with, the distributors, etc., because he wants to just make it organically. Well, he said he does want to work with us for the Dogman section over here at the North American Dogman Project, which would be definitely super excellent. Yet before we start diving into some things that have occurred to you and your thoughts as to potentially what's happening, if you had to pick a favorite cryptid per se, what would it be? And meaning, yes, favorite might be a loose term because a lot of cryptids are terrifying. I personally am a big science guy, okay? Meaning I am always willing to sway my opinions on things as long as my science team and other brilliant people can show me reasonings why I should sway my opinion. Just as a journalist, you got to be subjective, objective, also playing the devil's advocate, meaning whether you believe in something or not, if there's credit and analytics to it, it needs to be brought forth. But then on the other side, a lot of these, I couldn't even imagine how many until I'm going to give this guy a shout out. I go to bed listening to him, the Mystical Mug Tavern. It covers just all these cryptids out of folklore. Super interesting. But the guy had like a 7-hour video, right, that I'm listening to as I go to bed, where I want to say every 10 to 15 seconds he's talking about some other cryptid, or something involving folklore. Super cool. Yet, from a scientific perspective, when I try to find any sort of relevance to back it up, meaning like when we talk about Dogman and Sasquatch, skinwalkers, extraterrestrial based stuff, well, you have indigenous cultures mentioning it, you have other civilizations prior to that mentioning it. But then when you dive into, like I said, a lot of those other ones, you can't find any sort of historical references that are worth looking into on anything, meaning the indigenous lore is huge for me. When I look at a lot of those cryptids, they've never mentioned anything about those.
Mm-hmm. So if I have to pick a favorite, I can't really just have one in a sense. I'm Sasquatch. That's the OG. That's what really got me ever since seeing the Patterson-Gimlin film when I was a kid. Just that right there is what sparked curiosity that there's something out there. Recently, it's Wendigos, the Wendigo or the Skinwalker. Both of those, which a lot of people confuse them, which is crazy, but besides the point, they're equally terrifying and equally interesting because they're both Native American folklore, and it makes sense. To a part of me, it makes sense. Growing up around the Iroquois reservations, it's something that's ingrained in their folklore, and the Wendigo it's fascinating.
Excellent stuff. Cute answers and observations right there. Got to link you up with my buddy and one of my scientists, cryptozoologist legends, Mr. Ryan Tremblay, the Wendigo guy. That's actually specifically what he covers. I think you and him would have a great conversation if you ever want to learn anything about. Yeah, I will definitely try to see how he would like you to contact him, vice versa, and then I will let you know actually before I hop on my next podcast. Once you and I finish up, I will try to contact him then. If not, definitely afterwards, and I should be able to forward that contact info on to you by tomorrow, man. Definitely think you guys should link up.
Right on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, mine. Yeah, and like you were saying, there are so many cryptids. I don't know if the term favorite was the proper terminology. Yeah, you know how it is sometimes when words are floating around your brain and you need to grab one. Well, that's the one I chose to float on down. I find the most interesting personally is Dogman, which is why I cover that topic. Yet I do have a really high interest in the Jabba Fofi, those giant spiders. Meaning,
that's terrifying. That's horrifying.
If I had as much free time and felt like I was able to really bring proper clarity to what's occurring with the missing people and such, I would definitely like to dive into that a little bit more. Yet, until I can help people find their missing ones, also explain to people why we can't verify what it is they're seeing, I'm not doing the topic enough due diligence if I spread myself too thin. It's not that I don't find other things interesting. Knowledge to me is excellent. Every night I go to bed trying to listen to things. Of course, I would love to dive in potentially to these existing giant anacondas. Of course, I find many other things super interesting that I would like to look into as well. Yet again, I only have one of me at the moment. I do have a lovely sidekick squirrel, yet she does not know how to edit for me. All right. So I pretty much have to do everything myself. And a lot of people don't realize even a 45-minute video takes about 3.5 hours. Again, never complaining. This is what I enjoy doing. It's part of content creation. You have to edit and find people, yet there's just not enough time for me at the moment.
No, I understand that.
As you stated, kind of like with Monster Quest, man, meaning how much can you really cover on a topic in just a 45-minute episode? I have 550 pages. Actually, I think it might be like 553 now in this online PDF book I'm working on of strange Dogman sightings, missing people in those areas, right? Just for that, I'm super backed up. I have emails I still need to add in there. Yeah, again, trial and error. You just gotta find the time to do it, you know?
Yeah, you gotta make time. You gotta make time when you can and give it your best. Really, I mean, that's one of the reasons why like I haven't had the chance to go out and I guess investigate a lot of things that I want to. Not to bridge off from the subject, but Skinwalker Ranch is one of those places I would give anything to go investigate. And I like to say for for like 2 days I'd give anything, but 2 days isn't enough to cover anything there. I mean, you need the NIDS team that was there for years, and they barely scratched the surface of it.
Beautifully stated, my friend. Isn't that the truth? I've actually had a chance to speak to Travis a few times via Facebook. I really would love to get him on my podcast, yet he's so busy. I highly doubt it will happen anytime soon yet. No, very bizarre stuff over there. We actually just covered that. Part one out of like three with one of my coasts, Dirty Birdie. I'm actually in the midst of editing that video. Very bizarre stuff that has occurred out there for sure. Yeah, when it comes to, you said things that are strange, what have you really had that occurred with you? I actually was just told I needed to speak to you by good old Drewski. I actually don't even know what has occurred to you or what your thoughts are as to what potentially happened. If you would like to update myself and my listeners here before we answer maybe some of the questions you have for us.
Yeah, so this is about 9 years ago. Me and a buddy went down to the it's the New York Pennsylvania border up in the mountains. Went down to his family's hunting cabin, and I'm gonna give you the real abridged version because this story can take hours to tell. But we got down there and we got ran off the mountain by something a handful of times. We were armed, and every time we'd run from it. We'd get the thought of we're armed. Why are we running? And it was the last time we went up on the mountain that night. And I had to grab my buddy's like, listen, we gotta grab some stuff out of this lean-to, in case we don't come back. So I was the runner, and long story short, uh, something made itself clearly known that was there. I mean, it was a loud howl, growl, scream, roar. I can't recreate the noise. I can hear it in my head still. It was one of those things that I heard the noise. I froze in fear. I looked back, and my buddy was sitting there, jaws on the floor, on the driver's side of his truck, and he yelled, "Run!" And I did just that. I ran, went, jumped over the bed rail of the truck. We're flying down this mountain trail, and I'm sitting there waiting for whatever it is to come out of the woods. Every horror movie starts like this. Something's going to happen. We hit the main road. I hop in the cab of the truck, and we're both frantic. Did you hear that? What was that? I mean, we grew up in the woods hunting and fishing. Never heard anything like this. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a cougar. I mean, it's New York. That's the most dangerous predators we have. We don't have bears. I mean, sorry, we don't have wolves. We don't have anything like anything else. So we spent the night in a gas station parking lot. Morning comes. We stop at a diner, and I'm asking the waiter, what's the local legends of the town? What goes bump in the night? Explain what happened to him. His demeanor changed from being warm and welcoming to reserved and defensive. And yeah, we went back up on the mountain, did a preliminary search to see if there's any footprints, broken trees, something like that. Because whatever it was, we heard the night before, it was big, and we couldn't find anything, which really kind of shook us down to our core. Night was setting fast after we were hiking around the cabin. We made the executive decision to not spend the night again, and we took off from there. That night just kind of sticks with me, and I couldn't tell you what it was. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I've talked to some researchers from the BFRO, and They sat there and said that it sounds like a Sasquatch encounter. I talked to some other people, and they said it sounds like an elemental spirit. Was we got too close or something like that. Now, I don't know which one to believe. I mean, the little bit of research I've done on elemental spirits, we weren't disturbing the forest, we weren't destroying anything, so invoking that really doesn't make sense to me, but it could have been whatever. My buddy, though, did have an encounter down about an hour south of that location. He went camping one night in Allegheny State Forest in Pennsylvania. And it was supposed to be like a 3 or 4 man expedition. All his buddies canceled, and he was already had a camp set up, so he spent the night. And he sat there and said that he got a smell of sulfur, and it just felt like something was watching him. Sometime in the middle of the night, he got woken up by what he said sounded like a freight train running through the forest. Morning came, he was looking around and saw probably, he described about a 6-foot path of just broken trees, limbs, everything, beelining it straight from his camp back into the woods. And I don't know if it's related. I mean, it was about the same time, and only an hour apart. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? It sounds correlated to me.
Yeah, that's some very interesting stuff right there. Wow, thanks for sharing. That's some pretty terrifying stuff. As I've always stated to my audience, as well as any of my hosts and guests, I've never had any sort of paranormal activity. Definitely dealt with some Looney Tune human beings a few times. All right. Yet, just to think how that would potentially make an individual feel is pretty gnarly, meaning as a content creator, as an actor, as a former model, you got to play the roles, meaning I always, whenever I do anything, try and put myself in the feet of the individual that it's occurring. Even when I'm trying to enjoy something like a movie, just put yourself in that individual's shoes at the moment and be like, wow, how would I take this in? So yeah, when you hear things like that, definitely pretty interesting, yet also traumatizing for sure.
I can say this: it is one of those things that still sticks with me to the point where I don't like being in the woods at night without a gun. It's one of those things that I know my firearm's not going to really stop anything that's coming at me that's of whatever I'm dealing with. It's just that false security. That night still sticks. I mean, yes, it still sticks with me. It's I don't want to sound like a broken record. It's yeah. It was terrifying, put it like that, in the simplest of terms. I'd love to say I'd love to experience it again, but I don't.
Yeah, that seems to be quite a logical answer. Meaning, as I cover the topic, I have to be careful sometimes of the words I use, being like, oh, wow, that sounds like it's so cool. Yet, as you just stated, a lot of times with the individuals, these things are occurring. It's not very cool, right? The late Linda Godfrey, rest in peace, my friend, would always tell individuals she felt when they would tell her tell her their encounters that they were lucky to have had a chance to experience this. Yet the individuals were like, no, you don't want to have seen this, my friend. But I feel the same way. I'm not saying I want any sort of cryptid or paranormal encounter. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here trying to figure out what's occurring. Yet I also don't really know what's occurring at the same time. I feel I can help explain, hey, these people are missing here. We have these sightings. Yeah, when it comes and boils down to what exactly potentially a dogman per se is, well, until I'm able to actually have as much scientific clarity in front of me where people can't, refute it anymore, it's always going to be up in the air. How do you feel about that topic? Do you know what the potential dogman is?
I don't have enough information on the topic to make a a honest opinion, to have an honest opinion about it. The missing persons, I have, I don't want to say plenty because there's always more that I want to know, but I have some good opinions on missing persons cases, just not enough on the Dogman. I mean, I've heard the story of the Beast of Bray Road. That's really the only story I've ever heard of the Dogman, other than like listening to the confessionals podcast and hearing other people's stories on the Dogman. Listen to Drewski's podcast and him talking about their encounters with the Dogman and stuff like that. I that's kind of out of my realm of expertise, I guess. I'd say my realm of expertise is definitely more paranormal, and just it's all over the place.
Great answer. I would definitely love the good old Drewski right there for sure. No, I'm with you. I tend to pass off things I don't understand to individuals on my science team that have a better understanding. For example, like if it's paranormal stuff, then I definitely try to send it over to Dennis Carroll or Jessica, people that have a better understanding. Or if it's, Wendigo stuff, over to the good old Tremblay. If it's more, potentially, hey, is this a hyena, etc., send it over to the good old biologist and environmentalist we have. Pretty bizarre stuff for sure. I do encourage you, when you get a chance, to look more into the Michigan Dogman as well. I would hope, if you would like to know more about Dogman, you'd spend some time on my thread. That's what I cover. If not, I still encourage you to look into it. The Michigan Dogman and the Beast of Bray Road are some very interesting stuff, and all the way back to 290 BC with Alexander the Great and Herodotus, you have people mentioning things that look like dog men, dog people, dog women, called the cynocephali. Some had legs like you and I. Some had canine-like legs. Some had just canine heads. Super interesting because, you have basically an individual that wanted to be a god at this point in time, Alexander the Great, speaking about spending time with these things. They would come down from the mountains. They would trade. They were hellacious warriors, meaning we would be very arrogant in the future to think that Alexander the Great, Herodotus, and all these other individuals that were face to face with these people would not know if they were wearing animal skins or not. If you're trading with somebody, okay, and you're handing them a sword, they're handing you a sword, you're fighting side by side, you would know if that was just me or you with a wolf skin on, all right? They legit claim these things were canine-like creatures. Pretty bizarre stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. No, it's yeah. I think the reason why I just really have never looked into it is because most of the encounters and stuff that I've experienced throughout just random hunting trips, fishing trips, has always fit the characteristics of Sasquatch, and it's always fit the characteristics of possibly a Wendigo. Plus the missing 411, that one kind of hits a little close to home, just because of the Lily Pond Road case up in the Adirondacks of New York with it was a deer hunter who was a former Green Beret who went missing, and that was a big thing talked about, and it's interesting. Paranormal, I've experienced that one a handful of times through growing up, different jobs I've worked. I've had some weird things happen to me, and experienced a lot more just not even trying to find it. That it's always been, I want to prove this stuff exists, not for any scientific purposes or anything like that. And it sounds selfish. I just want to prove it exists for my own my own peace of mind, if you will. This way I know that it's like I'm not crazy. This is actually happening. And I don't think there's really many people out here that don't believe in ghosts anymore. Or paranormal. I think mainstream media with like ghost hunters, ghost adventures, and stuff like that has done a really good job at reeling people in and showing that there's a possibility of something else out there.
Agreed. Very interesting again. Well spoken. Acute observations, beyond bizarre stuff, that's for sure. When it comes to a lot of these cases of people missing near cave systems in the national forest, not just in general, because like I said, I try to specialize on near the cave systems, and in these national parks, there's all cave systems that line up with these missing people. Also, these strange sightings we have. If we overlap all the maps of the North American Dogman Project sightings we have, the missing people, the cave systems, it lines up like a good old glove, which is not a good thing. Pretty messed up. What do you think is happening here? Again, sure, some people are going to have misfortunes. Yes, some people are going to be naturally attacked by predators. Yes, some people are going to have interactions and run-ins with psychotic people. Yes, understood. But yeah, every year, anywhere just in the, not talking about Alaska. Alaska's a whole nother game with how many people go missing. Yet here in the more acceptable parts that we think of, like Maine to California and everything in between, every year anywhere from 1,100 to 2,400 people go missing, right? 5% found. That's it. Something's happening.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a few different theories on that, and one's like feral people that's talked about in southern Appalachia a lot. People that just either whether they're running from the law or whatever, they just disappear off up in the mountains. It's a possibility. I don't think it's I don't think it's really just that though. I
Yeah,
think there's something that I think something lives. Something definitely lives within the national parks, and we're not being told. Whether that's to keep tourism, keep that revenue stream coming into the parks because they are a big tourist attraction. I mean, people from all over the world come to the states to visit these national parks. Um, and if an alphabet agency were to come out and say there's something out here that we don't know what's going on, people would panic. Tourism and everything would just slowly it would stop. It would decrease. I mean, you'd have people like you and me that would go still because we want to know what's going on. We want to research this. Uh, but there's something that lives within there, and I've seen people say Teddy Roosevelt knew what was going on. That's why he created the national parks to try to contain it. And I don't know if I really subscribe to that,
agreed.
but there is something out there that we're not being told about. Uh, I actually have one that I was looking to make a video about that fits. I'd have to dig back through some files to figure out the gentleman's name, but he set out for a hike, went on his hike, and then became overdue, and no one ever seen him again. A search happened. They were able to track him for about 2-3 miles, and he vanished in thin air. And I think this was in Mammoth, if I'm not Mammoth or Yosemite. And that just seems to be the case. Yosemite is a real big hotspot for missing persons cases. Mammoth National Park is also a big hotspot, and Mammoth is if I'm not mistaken, it's the biggest underground cave system in the United States.
Yes, that we know of at the moment. You are correct.
Yes. I think whether it's an undiscovered species or something of the such that lives in these parks, I don't know. It's not. I can tell you for certain that it's not natural predation taking all these people. Like you said, some of it is misfortune, some of it is natural predation. But I mean, cougar attacks and bear attacks are very rare nowadays compared to what they used to be. And you do have the crazy people that do prey on the innocent. I don't think that it's accounting for 1,600 plus cases. It
Agreed.
might account for 25% or so, maybe 50%. But when you have people that just vanish without a trace, and then their remains turn up in previously searched spots, or articles of clothing appear in previously searched spots. It's almost that it's like something is playing with the search teams. It's almost like it's a way to say I'm smarter than you. I can get away with this without you guys knowing.
Creepy stuff right there. That reminds me a lot of some of the cases we've covered where people claim they see these strange bipedal, hyena, coyote, dogman looking things, baboon like things. Some of these people are found with their clothing either folded strangely beside it, or sometimes, like this one little kid, he was okay, but he was found with his clothes put on, but inside out and kind of backwards, meaning like whatever was doing it understood enough that it was supposed to be on him, but didn't fully understand or grasp the way what was inside out, meaning, yeah, you have these things that people say with the dogmen that chuck sticks, bang on people's houses, all kinds of things, right? They understand how to open doors. Well, obviously, if they potentially are the cynocephalide that existed at one point in time, or cloaks and things, well, they might not be most up to date on what buttons are, etc. I don't know. It's just interesting, meaning something obviously new enough that belonged on us, right? But they didn't put it back on enough. It's pretty interesting.
There was a case a few years back coming out of western Montana of a 3 or 4 year old boy who went missing for, I think it was 3 days, and he was found unscathed. I think he was exhibiting like minor symptoms of hypothermia, but this was in springtime in western Montana where the weather is really unpredictable. I mean, it would go from above freezing to below freezing, and after he was found, they asked him what happened, and the little boy responded with, "The bears took care of me. I was with the bears." Well, that's grizzly bear territory. Grizzly bears are extremely hostile towards humans. I find it highly unlikely that a grizzly bear took this child in, kept him warm, kept him fed, and then returned him safe, unscathed. Plus, the kid looks like he's been through war. Like he's got the classic 1,000-yard stare. I mean, I don't want to say it like this. The kid does not look like he's himself.
Of course.
Like that. They show a before and then a picture of him in the back of the ambulance. I mean, he's got his eyes are like saucers. Like he has seen true horrors. And it's just, I'd love to figure out what it is. Part of me would love to experience, and I say this not wanting it to happen, but I would love to experience what happens when these people go missing. It sounds terrible, but at the same time, like, I want to know what happens.
Yeah, curiosity right there, eh? Definitely is something that can be, well, good, but it could also be potentially to our downfall as well. As we are starting to wrap this up, I have a couple interesting things that I would like to chime in before we touch base with anything else you'd like to ask or speak about tonight before we let you get rolling. A lot of these cases, though, with the younger kids and things, this is just my twist. I believe it's more of like a Hansel and Gretel, just kind of like some dark stuff we do on Thanksgiving, right? What do they do with the turkeys? And they put berries and stuff in there to flavor it up. Yeah, I personally think that's what's happening. And these kids just get lucky that something spooks whatever took them away. But I don't think they're sitting there trying to just be all lovey-dovey. That's my thoughts. Also, too, when you touch base on, yeah, the general public can't handle things, all right? This is not a knock on anybody. This is just observations and analytics and scientific studies that have been done. The majority of people don't like to have to process things that could be chaotic or outside of the realm. They like to kind of be conformed and told what to do, meaning going to work, coming home with your family, watching your shows, whatever, hanging out with your kids, bringing your kids to school, repeat, right? All right. Mm-hmm. Something is chaotic like that. Look back when War of the Worlds was read over the radio waves. War of the Worlds was a book. It was meant for entertainment. Yet people turned on the radio and literally thought the world was being overtaken by aliens and started doing crazy things with their families, like unfortunately leaping out of buildings, just doing insane things because they legit thought the world was being overtaken by aliens. Whoa, this was just entertainment read over the radio waves. It's just a great example, though, to show you what the masses would do with panicking. So, I mean, what's it really going to do for anybody's sake for someone to be like, yeah, hey, there's a massive meteorite coming towards Earth, but the odds are we're not going to be able to do anything with this. So, yeah, hey, good luck. Check out Sports Center later. Okay, yeah, that's going to go over real well, right? Or, yeah, there are huge advanced civilizations that could just literally flick us to oblivion, and we might not be on the best terms with them. Hey, make sure you check out True Blood later. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Yeah, everyone's gonna flip their wig. You know what I mean? Oh, hey, go to the national parks here. Enjoy the time you spend out there where you have psychotic feral people. You have monstrous dogmen like werewolf creatures and Bigfoot. No worries though, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. I mean, that's not gonna go over well, right?
No, people would panic. People would be it'd be mass hysteria. But like I said earlier, people would stop going. They would refuse to. They would go. They would be. I'd hate to say it. They'd be burning the park system down, the parks down, to get rid of this or
Yeah,
whatever's out there.
people
They would.
flip.
They would. You would see armed militias coming into the parks to hunt this down. I mean, it would be like when the Jersey Devil thing cases, like when the sightings of the Jersey Devil back in the 1800s were spotted and stuff. People would be armed to the teeth, walking through the parks, open season on anything that moves.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's really messed up to think about that, but it's facts. Again, examples. Look how many times on Christmas, Black Friday, where people have been hurt or even some have been unalived by being stampeded to go to the new Xbox and stuff. Like, what? Yeah, it's not humorous, but yet when you really think of the madness, unfortunately, it is kind of humorous how just yikes. But hey, right? It is what it is. Well, my dude, you being a busy guy and such, is there anything else you would like to touch base on tonight or anything else you would like to ask myself or any shout outs you would like to do?
I can't think of anything else to touch base on right now.
All right, excellent. Well, I do appreciate you kicking it with us tonight. As I stated, I would like to get your thoughts on some more things when you get a little bit of extra time. You do have my contact information. All you got to do is let me know points in time when you are around again. I always keep my good old episodes here around 8:30 Eastern time, give or take. Could be around 8, a little bit later, but around those time frames. Yeah, so I don't have any times I really necessarily take off. I am trying to consolidate my podcast, though, meaning getting a bunch of my hosts together so that there's 2, 3, even 4 of us sometimes talking. It's excellent. It also saves me from having to speak, even though, yes, I understand it's my podcast, yet I would prefer to only do the intro and outro and let my guests just speak, because as I always say, if I wanted to do this myself and play in my own mud puddle and hear my own voice all the time, well, I wouldn't bring on people such as yourself.
I'm down to come back whenever you want me to come back.
Cool. I do appreciate that right there. Also, if you do need any more art or anything, let me know, my guy, and I will definitely get that churned up for you. My little brother, I have 2 little brothers that are legends. They both do amazing things for me. Yet the youngest got me with my sister-in-law a yearly subscription to good old Adobe. I can just legit create magic on there with no limitations. It's some beautiful stuff.
I will keep that in mind.
For sure. Well, to the audience, yes, Blackbeard is a very busy individual. He did kindly allot some time to sit down with us tonight. Yes, do make sure to go over and check out Drewski and Jessica Jones's content as well. Blackbeard did recently make an appearance with good old Drewski on Cryptid Warfare, where you can dive into a very deep episode about what Blackbeard had touched base on with us tonight. Maybe you could bring some clarity on to what was it? Paranormal? Supernatural? Was it the Dogman? Was it Bigfoot? Was it the Wendigo? This is questions I do not have answers for, yet this is why we always sit down and try to burn the late night fire and find out what is happening. Until next time, this will be the conclusion of the meeting of the Midnight Society for the early hours of the morning. If I do fear anything, it is the sunlight. Blackbeard, my guy, thanks for hanging out tonight.
Thanks for having me, man.
Ooh, my creatures of the night, you legends, you. I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for tuning in tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm, and we will catch you very soon.